Alright, I just watched the 2 available trailers for the live-action Yu Hakusho Netflix series that we've all been waiting for, and I figured I'd give some of my early opinions before it airs next month. I'm going to avoid low-hanging fruit like what the characters ended up looking like because we've had months to roast their aesthetic. I want to focus solely on what the trailer gave us and what that might mean for the end product, so let's jump right in with the official trailer. It starts with Yusuke discovering he's dead, and I actually like how chill he is until the reveal of his bloodied body. Though the circumstances were a bit different this time with him being hit by a truck instead of a speeding car. I'm not going to nitpick that, we needed him to get hit by a motor vehicle of some sort, and that's what happened. So it seems like after Yusuke meets Botan, she ferries him to Spirit World instead of them just kinda hanging out in Living World. I dig this visual of what I'm assuming is like the crossing of the River Styx into the afterlife to meet Koenma. I also hope this means we get to see more of Spirit World as a setting and not just the bureaucracy of the palace. I know I said I wouldn't harp on the character aesthetics, but that was more geared towards Team Urameshi. Everyone else is still kinda fair game, and I gotta say, Botan looks a tiny bit awkward here, but I'm going to reserve judgment until I see everyone in full motion. I can poke fun at the costumes, but I'm going to wait to have any kind of opinion about performances. So we do get to see Koenma where he tells Yusuke he's returning him to life in exchange for being Spirit Detective, and I have 2 separate thoughts about this moment. The less important thought is that we're meeting the quote-unquote teenage version of Koenma right away, which isn't the biggest thing, but toddler Koenma is just as iconic, and was part of the often absurd humor of the show. This version of Koenma typically showed up when things were serious and the stakes were high, but I'm still holding out hope that the toddler version is here somewhere, if even as a punchline. My second thought is how they've decided to move Yusuke into the position as Spirit Detective. It wasn't a quid pro quo for giving him his life back, it was more a result of the promise Yusuke showed in light of passing his trials to get his life back. This kind of gives me pause for concern in regard to the pace of the story, but I'll touch on this a bit later. There's also the possibility that this is just a common trap that trailers use and the dialogue we're hearing isn't even what's being spoken in this scene or at all, so again, reserving judgment. The next scene after this looks like it may take place at the climax of one of the arcs with the inclusion of the Makai insects possessing people, especially with Yusuke being present and getting attacked, ruling out it being the arson scene. After this, we get a glimpse of Hanging Neck Island and Yusuke hanging out on a boat with what looks like Hiei in the background. The more we see of Yusuke, the more I'm coming around on his general look. Then again, his was the easiest to get right, even though they still got the color of his undershirt wrong, but that's so deep in nitpick territory that I do not care. We then get glimpses of both Kurama and Hiei, neither of which inspire any joy in me, I'm sad to say, and the Jigan on Hiei looks like a sticker in this shot. I feel like it should probably be bigger, like if you're gonna do it, do it. We move to Kuwabara holding what appears to be his spirit sword, but I'm wondering why it's blue. It could be something else, but if it's his sword, I would have preferred it to be its OG color. I don't think this was the most flattering view of Kuwabara to put forward either, but maybe that was the point? There's a scene where we get to see Yusuke interacting with what I assume is Keiko while he's a ghost. I wonder if we'll get that soul-crushing scene with the kid going to Yusuke's wake. We get a bit of action after this, and it's actually here that my concern for the pacing really unfolded because we see Kurama beefing with Karasu in what looks like a warehouse of some sort. But then we also see Hiei fighting what looks to be the cultivated humans from the Saint Beast arc, so there's a lot being thrown out there that I'm curious to see how the showrunners justify. There's some more action with Yusuke throwing hands with one of the Makai possessed, but immediately following this we get our first look at Sakyo, who brings in the Toguro brothers. I don't really have any issues with them specifically since we know the younger brother's size is going to change based on his power output, and his base state is kind of tall and lanky. And the elder brother was never going to look good in live action perched on the younger shoulder. Also, in this shot specifically, the elder brother kind of looks like Alan Cumming in this shot. You know, Figa the Floop from Spy Kids. We get a blink and you'll miss it appearance from Goku, who's in the process of trying to kill Yusuke, so at least it seems as though we'll still be touching on a few of the goalposts from the series proper. Bui makes an appearance, giving us a sneak peek into his fisticuffs with Hiei. It's super fast, but we do see Bui is using his axe in this moment too. If we skip over the elder Toguro brother cackling, we catch a peek of Keiko and Yukina, and honestly they both look like people cosplaying and not like a multi-billion-dollar streaming platform funded this endeavor. I think the most heinous thing about the aesthetics of what the costume department has done has been the wigs. There are ways to make wigs, especially anime-inspired wigs, look good. Just ask any top-tier cosplayer. If I had to venture a guess though, based on the background, this might be Tarukane's compound during the rescue Yukina portion of the story. But then that begs the question, why is Keiko here? I guess we'll find out. We finally get a look at Genkai, but it's not much to go on, to be honest. She's not moving, she doesn't speak, there's nothing here for me to really comment on. Just gotta wait to see her in action, but she looks fine, I guess. The action's ramping up, so we see more of Kurama vs Karasu, and I'm genuinely surprised we didn't see any breakdance style combat choreography from Kurama in the anime. It's one of those moments that you don't realize you wanted to see until it's being done somewhere else. I think this is a cool visual, and we then see Karasu's trademark bomb attack. Rolling right out of that, we see Kuwabara, Keiko, and Yukina running through the same kind of corridor that the two ladies were shown in earlier. They're being chased by a hideous monster, which is very likely the demon Karen that Tarukane kept locked up in his compound, assuming Toguro doesn't murder in this version. Kuwabara can be seen carrying what looks like a pipe of some sort, which is probably the catalyst for his spirit sword, kinda like the way the fragment of the wooden sword was during the tail end of the Spirit Detective arc when they're going through Genkai's tournament. The trailer ends with Yusuke, Kurama, and Hiei going up against the younger Toguro brother, and I do have a couple of thoughts about this snippet. First, Kuwabara is absent from the scene, likely as a direct result of the scene we just talked about, but it would be a shame if he doesn't return to the fight since his combination attack with Yusuke is kind of iconic in the series. But that's just something we'll have to wait and see, really. Next, I'm really hoping it's just the editing for the trailer, but the fight choreography and even the direction of the scene seem a bit bland and flat. Not bad per se, just kind of uninspired. I will say I don't need crazy camera angles or whip pans to keep me engaged, but I do need good, weighty fight choreography. You can get away with basic fights in animation form since there are ways to hide that with creative storyboarding, but in live action, you have to nail the stunt work for action scenes to stick the landing. What's the point of featuring martial arts or close quarters combat if it's going to end up being boring? As long as it's better than the shit show that was Iron Fist's fight choreography, I can accept that. The second trailer is much shorter, so I won't do a play-by-play here. I'll mostly just single out any additional information or glimpses we get that weren't present in the official trailer. We do get to see Yusuke run out to save the little kid from being hit by the truck, but instead of moving perpendicular to the vehicle, he's running toward it. Which makes me wonder if they intend to keep the joke about Yusuke basically dying for nothing, since in the original the kid would have lived anyway. However, it would be tough to make that job work here since from the looks of it, that kid would have gotten mangled had Yusuke not intervened. Just a small thought that I might have more to say about when the show comes out depending on how they approach it. Or maybe they'll skip it entirely for the sake of time. We get a better look at the Makai insect, so I'm wondering how they intend to square that circle if the Saint Beasts don't make an appearance. There's a peek of Keiko and Yusuke's mom mourning him, and again, right after this, we see the cultivated humans from Mae's castle. So either they're going to make an appearance or the showrunners are planning to just blend elements together to keep things moving. I'm very curious which one we're going to get. There's some more action shots between Yusuke and Toguro, followed by Kurama taking one of Karsu's bombs to the shoulder while barreling toward him, another glimpse of Bui throwing hands with Hiei, and then a much better look at Goki. There are some other things too, but they're not terribly important or add to the information given to us from the official trailer. So, the trailers themselves don't look nearly as concerning as I thought they might, and admittedly my knee-jerk reaction upon first watch was, oh god, no. But sitting here going frame by frame, I do think there's like 35% chance it could end up being surprisingly okay. It will all come down to the pacing and the episode count, which leads me into my first major concern. Everywhere I looked, the live action only seems like it'll have 3 episodes. That's basically nothing compared to One Piece's 8 episodes, Cowboy Bebop's 10, and even the upcoming Avatar getting 8. So I can only speculate and hope that one of 2 possibilities explains this. Either A, the episodes are going to be 90 plus minutes long, or B, there were only 3 confirmed episodes, but there may be more that drop alongside them. Option A seems much more plausible, but that's still a bit worrying for the pace of the story it's trying to tell. I cannot imagine the logistical nightmare of cramming 2.5 arcs into 3 episodes, regardless of runtimes. Or hell, maybe they cut a lot out, which kind of defeats the purpose of the classic manga comes to life marketing line. Although, that same trailer does say, welcome to a new world, which might be a quiet way of saying, we changed some stuff, please don't be mad. My only other true concern from the footage we've seen is just how seriously it takes itself. While Yu Hakusho does have a lot to say in terms of its themes, which can be pretty dark, the story was never afraid to allow most of its characters to lighten the mood, not just Kuwabara. Yusuke himself is a snarky and pretty funny guy who doesn't take things too seriously, which is a big part of his overall growth, especially towards the end of the Dark Tournament. I'm sincerely hoping they didn't remove the witty, snarky side of Yusuke's personality in favor of a darker and more serious tone, since the original story had those traits anyway. Part of Yusuke's charm was his ability to be something of a rebellious dickhead in the face of overwhelming odds, but it was never malicious or broody. Simultaneously, I hope the show doesn't paint Kuwabara as solely the comic relief, since in many ways he becomes the beating heart of Team Urameshi. I'm going to reserve all of my actual judgments for after we've seen the show itself, but at the moment, I'm cautiously optimistic. Maybe not for a remarkable show, but for a surprisingly okay one. I need the show to either be surprisingly solid or absolutely awful. Those are the only 2 enjoyable outcomes of this situation. Worst case scenario would be if it ends up just being painfully mediocre or boring. But those are just some of my thoughts on the trailers we got. I apologize for the delay in content. I recently moved from the East Coast to the Midwest, and between getting settled in and job hunting, life has been kinda crazy. But I secured a solid job that should still allow me time to make content, and in the meantime, I'm still hard at work on part 1 of the Three Kings rewrite. I want to get it just right, and that means iterating until I'm satisfied with the result. I'm not sure it'll be done before the live action Yu Hakusho comes out, but I'll do my best to get that to you all in a timely manner. If you haven't checked out my gaming channel where I do self-imposed challenges and games I enjoy, you should. Link will be somewhere below. But what are your thoughts on the trailers we got? I'm very curious where you guys land on this one. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to take care of yourselves and others. I hope your days remain or become Saturnian, and I will see you guys soon.